is another way to play politics.
I understand. I guess
that's why, historically speaking, in times of breakdown, people tend to jump to different religions.
Well, you're right about this one thought, but I'm saying I'm getting outside of fundamental Christianity. I'm saying that people become fundamentalist about a lot of things, and so they will become a simpler, more automated version about themselves or about their past, because that's what offers the best hope, they think, for the future. And I think that's happened a lot.
Well, but there again, I think this is a point we're going to disagree on, because as I look at the collapse of previous civilizations, there tends to be not the simplification, but in fact a great complexification, a great enrichment if you don't have the outer life to focus on, because it's not going very well because there's a lot of poverty. What are you going to do? Typically what happens is a lot of development of some enormous diversity in the inner life. And it's after some period, as things start sort of re-solidifying, getting organized again, that you start having the heresy trials, you start having, the persecution of the various, the Cathars or what have you, or the equivalents in other parts of history at other parts of time.
I wish you're right. I think that the story of the plague is a story of once more, when societies are faced with complexity, they revert to...
the Black Death was nearly the end of the Middle Ages, the beginning of the Renaissance. And there again, it didn't usher in a period of contraction, it ushered in a period of great expansion and development. After the plague, again, a lot of what made the Middle Ages tick no longer made sense to people, and so you had the huge cultural explosion of the Renaissance coming out of that. Another example of what I'm talking about.
East of the Rockies, Harry is in Florida on Coast to Coast AM for John Michael Greer. Harry?
Yes, I'd like to get simplistic. It seems to me that mankind's problems are due to overpopulation and depletion of the Earth's resources. It is a cause of famines, food shortages, disease, death, pollution, global warming, wars, genocide, poverty, you name it. It's all due to overpopulation. If man does not reduce the Earth's population in a humane and scientific manner, nature is going to do it, and it'll be brutal.
Unfortunately, there are 4 natural cures for overpopulation, and they ride horses. I'm hoping that it doesn't come to that, but at this point, it's kind of hard to cling to that hope, because people have done almost everything but get sensible about, that very basic human urge to reproduce.
Shirley is in Texas on Coast to Coast AM for John Michael Greer. Shirley?
Yeah, hello, Mr. Greer. Fascinating hearing you here. I wanted to just mention 3 things. First of all, when I was a little girl, I'm 53 now, my farmer grandfather told me that the farmer started out with a horse and a plow, and in my lifetime, I would see the farmer go back to using a horse and a plow.
Your grandfather was a very wise man.
Also, yes, he was. Also, the dumbing down of education in America. I happened to be 12 years old in an experimental educational program where they had brought in people that we didn't recognize. We weren't told up front that they were university professors. And subsequently, we were taught subjects like advanced nuclear physics, which we apparently told at the end of the course that if we had told our parents that that was what we were studying, in fact, that we would have been told that there wouldn't be any way that we could absorb or grasp any of it. And also, just a third point, you talked about the totalitarian guard of yesteryear. What's to say that that isn't the Blackwater of today? And I'll hang up and listen to it, Jeff.
Okay, 2 comments. First of all, with regard to the education thing, there's been a huge amount of experimental work done that shows that kids can absorb a lot more than we give them credit for. There was one study that I recall where they took a group of kids and they did not teach them any math until 7th grade. They left math out of the curriculum completely of those kids, and then 7th grade they started math, and by I think 3 months into the year they were up to their grade level. You don't need to do it in the... we have an educational system that in some ways is very backwards and in some ways has lost the virtues of some of the older systems. As far as Blackwater, one of the things that a lot of people miss is that mercenary army is the least trustworthy thing on earth, because someone can always buy it. Who's to say that the Chinese couldn't simply cut a check and buy Blackwater? if people fight for money, they'll fight for money. So I really hope that under the new administration, America gets out of the business of hiring mercenaries and goes back, to basically defending itself with people who are doing it out of something other than a desire for a paycheck.
That'll be interesting. I'd like to think you're right. But let's get to Bill, West Hartford, Connecticut, wildcard line for John Michael Greer. We're exploring what life would be like in a post-industrial age. Bill?
Hi, this is Bill in West Hartford, Connecticut. Hi. Mr. Greer, it's appropriate that I'm calling on the wild card line because I have a wild card, a great wild card, a fantastic wild card that throws a great monkey wrench into what you're saying, which shows that maybe, it's one question, it shows that maybe the future may be great, better than what we're talking about. I'll name two guests which it involves, and I'll explain. Guests that have been on Coast to Coast in the past, like Richard C. Hoagland and Michio Kaku. Michio Kaku talks about Type 0 civilization, which we are now, Type 1, to control the planet, Type 2, our star.
Yes. Bill, go.
Okay, so what's your monkey wrench?
Okay, the monkey wrench is, what about science and technology finding new things? I'm talking about zero-point energy quintessence, things that we wouldn't think of now that would make it. Now, petroleum is not the be-all and end-all, is what I'm trying to say.
Petroleum is the most energy-rich, naturally occurring abundant substance on Earth. One of the things, it's very easy to say, well, technology will take care of it, but technology doesn't act in a vacuum. It has to be able to draw on a concentrated energy source, just as the steam engine became the foundation of 18th and 19th century industrialism because the Earth had huge coal deposits. If the fossil plants of the Devonian had turned into a non-flammable form under the Earth, the Industrial Revolution wouldn't have happened. Similarly, if all that dead sea life had not turned into petroleum, the transportation revolution of the 20th century wouldn't have happened. It's very easy to talk about technology as though it can be interchanged for energy, as though we can just, do that. But the thing that I point out, more importantly than this, is we've been hearing people promising zero-point energy for how long now? Actually, I think the oldest free energy machine design that I've seen dates from the birth of Christ in a Hindu manuscript. It didn't work either. And it's all very well and good to say, well, there are these marvelous new possibilities that are untested, unimagined. We don't know what they are. Are you going to bet your future on the prospect that we might come up with something down the road? It's like fusion power. I mean, when I was a kid, fusion power, we were constantly informed, was 20 years in the future, it would be all over the place. Today, it's still 20 years in the future. My guess is that 10 million years ago, or 10 million years from now, rather, when raccoons evolve the opposable thumbs and replace us, fusion power will still be 20 years in the future.
Let's get to, we've got John in St. Louis on Wildcard Line on Coast to Coast AM for John Michael Greer. John?
Good evening, Ian. Good evening, Mr. Greer. You've got a great voice for this show. You sound similar to Rod Serling.
Thank you. That's real great.
I appreciate you how focused your mind is like laser beam. I believe we're on the cusp, actually broken in with the new election of a greatest spiritual awakening. I'm sure you're aware of this, being a religious and spiritual person yourself. I believe that is going to allow us to, whatever we face, as we become empowered as individuals and realize that God really does dwell in us and lives in us, that we can resolve whatever comes our way, and to meet, and whether we do live in a tribal society or, maybe not as connected as in big cities and stuff. But I do believe that we are on the cusp of right away.
We certainly have the capacity to meet whatever is coming with dignity and grace. It's something that's innate in human beings if they choose to use it. I tend to disagree with the people that assume that because we have spirituality, we can somehow ignore material reality, but I don't hear you saying that. Whether or not we're going to see a really major spiritual awakening out of this, or whether it's just a challenge that each of us has to meet in our own way, that's another matter, and we'll see. I mean, I don't claim it's some kind of privileged view of the future, much less a privileged view into people's souls. But we do have the capacity to meet this in a humane and dignified way, and I hope people embrace that possibility.
Alan, the first-time caller line on Coast to Coast AM, Little Rock, calling for John Michael Greer. Alan?
Yes, sir. Actually, very intriguing question. How many generations would you guess we have before the total collapse of the world as we know it, being state and federal government?
Okay, well, if you federal government for state government, federal government within 3 to 5 generations, state government within 5 to 10.
5 to 10.
5 to 10. The states are good, sensible size, most of them, especially on the East Coast and the eastern half of the country.
And do you see a time where you're going to see a you mentioned like the different presidents who are going to be all claiming to be presidents of the United States. What do you think will band people together the most? What will be that factor which brings together a confederation?
That's the challenging one, because it's almost impossible to tell beforehand what will do it. In the case of the United States, what made the United States out of 13 colonies was a complicated set of ideals that just, some homegrown, some imported. You never know what's going to do something like that.
Hang on to that thought. I have a model, a potential model.
I look forward to hearing it.
We'll get that coming next. John Michael Greer, continuing to take your questions and comments about life in the post-industrial age. It's a very well-written book. I mean, I really do recommend it. The Long Descent, next on Coast to Coast AM. Coming up tomorrow night, Tracy Twyman returns. We've had her on several times over the years. She's just written some terrific books, and this is one that will be more challenging. This is not a fun one. This is not something that will make you proud to be American. If what she's saying is true, and if what the people in her book testify to in their own experience is true, this is indeed a dark chapter in our history of domestic espionage. It would be so hard to contemplate that if it weren't true, it would just be something you wouldn't even watch it if it were a movie. The CIA intentionally fracturing the minds of people who are already at risk, and they do this through sexual abuse in order that they can create people that they can control for various purposes. And coming up tomorrow night, Tracy Twyman will talk about just what those purposes were in this super secret CIA mind control experiment. Did it happen? It would be hard to say impossible once you hear the testimony that she'll share tomorrow night when we talk about super secret CIA mind-controlled sex slaves on Coast to Coast AM. Back for our last half hour with John Michael Greer and the book, The Long Descent, What Life Would Be Like in a Post-Industrial Age. Full boat of calls will get to you next for him on Coast to Coast AM. This is Ian Punnett. John Michael Greer, and where do we start? Probably Sharon in Phoenix, west of the Rockies, about life in the post-industrial age. Sharon?
Hi, Ian. John Michael, nice to speak to you. What role do you see the internet playing? Well, is it going to be part of the problem? What will its future be? How will this affect us? How are we going to handle it?
Well, the internet as it exists was built during a time when energy was cheaper than, corrected for inflation, it's ever been in human history. And what we see of the internet is, we see our computers, we see the neat little toys. We don't see the server farms, each of which use as much energy as a medium-sized town, and there are thousands of these things, more of them going up all the time. The internet is very energy hungry, it's very resource intensive. My guess is that one of the first things to go as energy becomes short, as our technology becomes difficult to maintain, is easy internet access. And my guess is by the time I'm an old man, the internet is going, in its current form certainly, will be a thing of the past, at least in terms of something that you and I can access. There will be a government version of it for much longer.
How do we deal with that?
Well, one of the things, there are actually ways to, there are of course a lot of old-fashioned ways to communicate on a slightly slower method. Slightly slower means there is always the mail. There's postal methods which worked perfectly well in the 18th century. There's also things like amateur radio, which can be used to make contact over very long distances, including transferring computer files and things like this. Without the infrastructure, you've just got a transmitter, you've got a receiver. They're fairly easy to build and to maintain. So there's a lot of other options available. It's just the internet as we know it, with all that energy, all those options, all that international connectivity, I don't think we're going to see it around for very long. So there are going to be some major changes as it goes away, and we have to go back to figuring out how to do things the way that we all did things as recently as the early 1980s.
I just have to say this again. I was listening to this classic Art Bell show the other night with John Anderson. No, that's not John Anderson. The columnist. Jack Anderson. Thanks. And he was talking about the internet, and he was referring to this new thing of the internet, and he had this really sort of pessimistic prediction about the future of the internet, and that was in 1999. I think we've already surpassed that. It didn't ruin society. That in fact it bypasses the media. It creates exchange information.
It certainly caused major changes, and the question is simply how long can we maintain the infrastructure that allows it to operate? And that's a question I don't know if anyone answered. It is very resilient to sudden changes. It was originally designed back in the ARPANET days to survive a nuclear war. The question is whether slow degradation caused by energy shortages and resource shortages are going to be, whether it's designed to survive that. I don't think so.
Mike is in Scranton, Pennsylvania on Coast to Coast AM. Mike?
Yeah, your thesis hinges on the proposition that we're going to run out of fuel. Oil, basically. Now, there's a book out there, and the person who wrote it was on Coast to Coast, Black Gold Stranglehold. And it states that Oil is essentially a naturally replenishing a resource. It's constantly replenishing itself. And then there are no oil shortages, and that there never will be. And it's the oil companies who are pushing this idea that it's a scarce resource just so they can charge more money.
Okay, it has been very popular to make these claims. The problem is they don't work out in practice. The oil companies actually have been loudly denying that peak oil is an issue. They've been insisting there's going to be an endless amount of oil for as long as the eye can see. And in fact, it's been a small number of people on the fringes, including a bunch of people who've been on coast to coast, who've been saying, look, you can't get an infinite amount of energy out of a finite planet. It just doesn't work. So, yes, I've heard the arguments. I've researched the situation. I talk to petroleum engineers. I don't listen to the politicians, and I don't listen to the companies, the people who actually work in the field, who spend their time, drilling a hole in the ground and seeing what's down there. And they one and all say that this, these claims that oil naturally replenishes itself is hogwash. If that were the case, Pennsylvania would still be a massive oil province. There are a few wells still in Pennsylvania, but that's the first place America drilled, and there's very little oil left there these days.
Okay. Let's go to Adele in Petaluma, California, on Coast to Coast AM for John Michael Greer. Adele?
Good evening, gentlemen. Yes, I was telling your producer, I'm a nurse. I have been in the nursing field since the late 50s, and way back then, we hardly had any drugs short of antibiotics, whatever, blah, blah, blah. I am concerned that, from what I see now, the odd time I've called in, is 50% of the civilized world, I think, are dependent on a lot of these prescription drugs, especially the psychiatric drugs. And this could, and it is it adversely affecting the cultural, social, economic problems? And if this is going to continue to escalate, FDA continues to prove, how do you see this affecting in the future?
Well, I think you're definitely right that we have a hugely over-medicated society at this point, and that's largely because, unfortunately, large parts of the medical industry have turned into basically a sales program for the pharmaceutical companies. I happen to think that the old-fashioned approach to nursing, the sort of thing that you did back in the day when you got into nursing, that's where real health care takes place. Not just pushing pills and so on, but actually caring for patients. My guess is that one of the things that will happen as the economy falls apart, as energy and raw materials become scarcer, is that a lot of the medications that are being poured out on the general public at this point, a lot of those are going to be priced out of the market, or are simply not going to be available anymore. And so there's going to be a real place for people who still know how to treat wounds, how to deal with illnesses, using low-tech, hands-on means of the sort that a lot of nurses still know how to do. So your profession is one of the ones that's going to be very important in the future, no question.
Jerry's in Houston on Coast to Coast AM for John Michael Greer. Jerry?
Fascinating call. I'm a registered nurse too, and I 100% agree with what you just said there. You had made a comment earlier about things falling apart in the United States into smaller city-states, county-states, things like that. To quote a great philosopher by the name of Josephus, he said that we may do a little fight amongst ourselves, but you outsiders have best leave us alone. I think one thing that you're not putting into the formula is the indomitable spirit of the people of the United States. There have been crises that have come that we as a nation have come together and overcome. I see that again in this. I don't see society falling apart and collapsing upon itself like you see it. I see us as a society figuring out a way to overcome the problem. Wanted to get your comment on it, and I'll just hang up and listen on the air.
Okay. I hope you're right. The problem is people were saying the same thing in ancient Rome. The indomitable Roman spirit, and how we overcame Hannibal, we overcame the Gauls, we overcame all these crises. We can deal with the Visigoths. Well, sooner or later you can't. And I think American history isn't over. I think there's a lot of changes to come. I think it's possible that we may ultimately meet the transformations of the next few centuries as more than one nation. It would not surprise me if the Republic of Texas was a Republic of Texas again at some point. But we'll see. The point that I want to make, though, is that other cultures have been here before, other civilizations have been here before, and it really makes sense to look at what happened to them and look at the typical signs of decline. And again, what you're saying has been said many times before. It didn't help Rome, it didn't help the Mayans, it didn't, sooner or later, no matter how indomitable your spirit is, you die. That's true of us as individuals. It's also true of society and cultures. Go on.
Doug is in Fullerton, California on Coast to Coast AM for John Michael Greer. Doug?
Well,
Ian, John, hey, listen, I'm wondering if you've ever heard of the super turbine, which is a new type of wind turbine that gets a lot more power than a regular turbine because it's got a whole bunch of propellers instead of just one. And I think innovations like that, I'm just wondering, have you heard of that?
I've been trying to keep track of, there's actually some very nice new wind turbine technologies that are more efficient. They're toward the upper end of the amount of power you can get out of the wind. There are some great technologies being done. Ultimately, though, again, you've got to remember the difference between, think of the pressure on your hand that you get from a 20-mile-an-hour wind and the pressure on your hand that you get from a jet of steam at 500 degrees centigrade and 2,600 pounds per square inch. That's the difference between renewable energies and fossil fuels. And even if you're extracting as much energy as theoretically possible out of the wind, it's still not that much compared to what you get from fossil fuels. So are these things important? Are these new technologies valuable? Of course they are. We need to develop them. It remains the fact they're not going to replace fossil fuels and allow us to continue the lives we've been living.
Eric in Eagle, Idaho on Coast to Coast AM for John Michael Greer. Ooh, did I get hit that button hard? There it is.
Great show tonight. This is really good. We need to be talking about stuff like this about time. I just want to say that the biggest economy problem right now really isn't all this crap. I mean, all this stuff with the banks cleaning out too much money. What it really is all these devices that were given to us as presents, manifested into the consciousness of scientists at the beginning of the century. The radio, for instance, and the new extension of that is the internet. I mean, it's all part of the same thing. And these devices that we have really are for our basic needs, and they're dual in nature. Of course, you can take the car and put the bomb on it, turn it into a tank and whatnot. Anyway, the devices, basically, to put a long story short, is the dollar sign, the money we make. If you were to average everybody's pay throughout the entire world and put it together, and then look at the devices, the energy we have from the devices, despite the basic needs, and so everybody can basically survive it, the energy has to be shared. You got a millionaire fat cat with 6 Learjets and 10 mansions, and then you got 100,000 people starving to death in Africa. It's ridiculous, and it's a universal joke. I'm glad you're talking about this thing.
Yeah, what you're saying is that we have enough for people's needs, but not enough for people's greed. And of course, at the moment that's true. I am really concerned that we will not be able to support 6.5 billion people on this planet as the immense energy supplies that we're used to using deplete away. That's why I'm talking population contraction and some of the other harsher things that I see as elements of our future. But, one of the things that we have to get used to is the fact that a lot of toys, a lot of trinkets that we have all made part of our lives are not going to be sustainable in the long term.
First-time caller line, Gina is in Atlanta on Coast to Coast AM for John Michael Greer. Gina?
Thank you for having me, Ian. I'm sorry, this is my first call. I'm a little nervous. John Michael, I'm an DA initiate, and I'm living in the Atlanta area. We take care of an aging parent, which has put me in a position now where I don't have a lot. And that makes me akin to where a lot of people are right now, and from what you're saying, many more will be in the same position in the future where, they may be losing their homes or they can't find work. And what you're saying is very valuable, and what I tried to do on a limited basis is very valuable, but as a practical matter, do you have any ideas for ways that we can, other than the way John Prine said, throw away your TV,
It's not that advice, but
your home, but seriously, to try to become more self-sufficient in the economy as it's breaking down. Recycling is great saying, all these things.
Okay, Gina, we got to give a chance to answer. I think you're asking a good question. Go ahead.
It's a great question. It's an important question. The crucial things that I think people need to start looking at are the ways they can detach themselves from the money economy. Because as the economy contracts, as energy becomes short, the money economy is on the black hole. People are putting in their labor and they're not actually getting that much back. 100 years ago, 200 years ago, a huge amount of the goods and services each person used were actually produced at home. And much of what is going on in the household, or what could be going on in the household economy, has been farmed out to the money economy. We need to pull that back. It's not going to be easy. None of this is going to be easy, and I think most of us are going to encounter some real hardships in time to come. You've encountered some of those already because you've made the right but difficult choice to take care of an aging parent, to do the right thing instead of farming that out to the money economy by way of a nursing home. But we need to draw things back from the money economy, take them into our own hands again. That's going to be difficult as long as there's rent to pay, as long as there are taxes to pay, but it's really the foundation of a successful strategy for dealing with these changes.
Don't throw out your televisions until you have a chance to see Unexplained with George Norrie coming up November 16th through Thursday, November 20th. The pilot episodes of Unexplained with George Norrie airing on the Sci-Fi Channel. I think we have time for one last call. It looks like Gregory in Boise on Coast to Coast AM for John Michael Greer. Gregory?
All right, great. John, I don't know the last time you read your Constitution. Article 1, Section 8 says Congress, has the power to grant letters of marque and reprisal.
Oh, yes.
Like that's hiring mercenaries.
I know. Congress has the right to do so. My suggestion is that it's actually, that historically speaking, it's a bad idea.
I can't cite one issue, one time in history where a mercenary army has turned code.
It happened all the time in the Italian Renaissance. All of the Renaissance states used mercenary armies.
Too bad you brought up Blackwater, because I know some people from Blackwater. I'm very proud to know some people from Greystone. Their mission is different here and there. They're more like the Peace Corps with guns in Africa. With what
I can appreciate your position on that. Unfortunately, it comes to the very tail end here. The music's already rolling. And so we'll just say, some good mercenaries, and that's good. Don't take away from John Michael Greer's point, though, that there are armies that have gone to the highest bidder and turned against the people
all the time.
Right. So, thank you. You go ahead, Jason, put him on hold, and thank you to John Michael Greer. Again, the book, The Long Descent. Always a pleasure. Say hi to the fairies and elves for me. Tell my peeps that I think about them all the time. Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, Doug. Appreciate it. And talk to you tomorrow night for this very. A joyous holiday for you if you were celebrating Christmas yesterday, or the Yule season, or still in the midst of a very pleasant and family-focused Hanukkah. Regardless of your religious affiliation, I hope this holiday has been a season of possibilities, as I like to think of this latter part of December, as we look ahead into the new year, and always thinking, what can be? What is yet to come? What is being birthed inside of us? What miracles may be ahead? That's how I like to think about the holidays, and I think that's available to anybody. Although we'll have an interesting Christian spin on something coming up this hour, and I think everybody will like it. And then we'll go open lines for the rest of the night, because it's one of those Friday nights too where there's lots of people who are listening to Coast who ordinarily may not have a chance to. They might be working. This is a vacation time tradition. A lot of companies giving extra days off around the weekend, because there was no point in taking off Thursday and then bringing everybody to work on Friday and then taking it back off again. So a lot of people got extra weekend time. So we look forward to a robust open line segment, which we'll get to after our first hour's guest, which has an interesting argument about C.S. Lewis, which we'll get to in just a moment. But first, a little crypto news. The new president-elect is breaking new ground in many ways. Last week it was pink hippos. This week, purple squirrels. And God, it's all in your head after all. We'll get to all of those stories when we get the show started right on Coast to Coast AM. In for George Norrie tonight, this is Ian Pine. Again, I hope George Norrie had a fabulous holiday as well, and that yours was full of whatever it was that you were hoping your holiday would be full of. I had copious amounts of everything except movies. I want to hit more movies. We did see Valkyrie on Christmas Day in a sold-out theater. In fact, back-to-back sold-out theaters for Valkyrie. I think Valkyrie ended up doing very well with the Tom Cruise. I enjoyed it. All this talk about how horrible it was going to be and how Tom Cruise couldn't pull off being a Nazi or whatever. I thought he was a great Nazi. Well, that's a compliment, but you seemed born to be a Nazi. And it was good. I wanted to see the Spirit, which was my intention. Of course, the Will Eisner comic book character brought to life? Question mark. But the reviews were so terrible, I just couldn't subject my wife to it. I want to be able to keep bringing my wife to comic book movies, so I only bring her to the really good ones, and this one was not being well reviewed. And if anybody saw that and they want to comment on that when we get to open lines coming up later on, I'd love to hear from you too. Haven't done the Benjamin Button thing, but that looks like it's on the schedule for tomorrow. I love this time of year for all of these big movies. It's like going to an amusement park and not knowing which ride to go on first, and hoping that they're all going to be good, and then always being a little bit disappointed. Did you see that news story about Barack Obama, how he may be our first official geek American president? That'll kick off crypto news here on Coast to Coast. President-elect Barack Obama used to collect comic books himself, can't part with his BlackBerry, and once flashed lettered Mr. Spock Nimoy the Vulcan, quote, live long and prosper sign. That and other evidence has convinced some of Obama's nerdier fans that he'll be the first American president to show distinct signs of geekiness. Obama is good at, quote, repressing his inner geek But you can tell it's there, especially when he goes into nuanced explanations of technical matters, said Benjamin Nugent, author of the book American Nerd, The Story of My People. One imagines a terrifying rally of Star Trek people shouting, one of us, Nugent said, in an interview conducted by email, of course. Others see only some geek qualities, qualifying the president-elect as merely, quote, nerd adjacent, like a fellow traveler. After all, he's an athlete and kind of cool, some experts say. Still, there's enough there for geeks to celebrate. So in other words, President-elect Obama is geeky, but may not be an actual geek. Could be worse. Instead of flashing Leonard Nimoy, the live long and prosper hand gesture, he could have just merely flashed Leonard Nimoy like President Clinton did. Nah, I'm making that up. He didn't really. Well, I don't know. I say he didn't, but I don't know. Sounds like something he'd do. One of my favorite nerd-friendly websites has a cool story in it tonight. The research arm of the U.S. Department of Justice is working on 2 portable, non-lethal weapons that inflict pain from a distance using beams of laser light or microwaves with the intention of putting them in the hands of police to subdue suspects. You can find out more about this by going to coasttocoastam.com. The 2 devices under development by the Civilian National Institute of Justice both build on knowledge gained from the Pentagon's controversial active denial system, first demonstrated in public last year. That uses a 2-meter beam of short microwaves to heat up the outer layer of a person's skin and cause pain. This research, you remember, was considered controversial because the pain beam was inspired by and developed using the icy stares of 1,000 disappointed mothers-in-law. Oh, the humanity. Any man who has experienced that knows that the only thing one can do in the midst of a pain beam from a mother-in-law is just to try to get to your happy place. I find myself just trying to think of something comforting like little pink bunnies. Hi, Mary, I love you. Of course, up until this week, I didn't think little pink bunnies were real. Now, I'm not so sure. Did you hear about the purple squirrel? Have you seen it yet? If you go to coasttocoastam.com, you can see the photo of it. A purple squirrel has become a sensation at a school in England after it began making frequent visits around the campus. Wildlife experts are at a loss to explain the rodent's unique purple color, though speculate that it may be a result of a run-in with a discarded printer cartridge. How cool is that? This week it's a purple squirrel. Last week in crypto news, it was a young hippopotamus in a Russian zoo that woke up pink one morning without any scientific explanation. Or maybe we shouldn't look for a scientific explanation at all. Could it be that in these uncertain economic times, where evil men dressed as Santa Claus go on murder sprees, where terrorists murder innocents in their sleep in the name of justice, a time when troops are amassing at various borders, threatening the peace of millions, could it be that just now, when we need them most, God is sending us